sorry that you're having schizophrenia. It really shouldn't be my problem. That's really where I am. I pay tax dollars to try to get people like this into facilities where they can't hurt me or my children. Why aren't my tax dollars being used this way? Instead, Megan, what we've seen with these judges down there, you mentioned the governor and his predecessor, both of whom were woke Democrats who implemented soft on crime policing policies. The mayor, she's a nightmare. Vile, that's what I call her. Her name is Vi Lyles. A Democrat. Her reaction, I read this the other day, but just as a reminder, she comes out to say, I don't know the specifics of this man's medical record, but he's long struggled with his mental health, appears to have suffered a crisis. This is the unfortunate and tragic outcome. Tragic incidents like these should force us to look at what we are doing across our community to address root causes. We will never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health. And then goes on to say, I want to be clear, I'm not villainizing those who struggle with their mental health. Then there's the magistrate judge who's got another job as the director of operations at Second Chance Services, a mental health and addiction clinic in Charlotte, North Carolina. Gee, I wonder what her political bent would be when someone like this guy, Brown, comes before her. She graduated from the worst law school in the country, Cooley Law School, so she has a JD. It also has the lowest bar passage rate of any accredited law school in the country. We don't believe she has her actual bar card. So she's a magistrate judge who can't practice law from the look of it. And by the way, that's also legal in North Carolina. She's making decisions on your safety as a Charlotte resident. And then it goes up to Roy Wiggins, who made the decision, this district judge in July, on whether this guy should remain in custody pending his mental health evaluation, and said, no, he doesn't need to. Go ahead, go back out on the streets. All of you in Charlotte were failed by all of these people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when you look at that Vi Lyles statement, the thing that was most appalling about it is in her initial statement, she did not acknowledge Irina Zarutska at all, did not name the victim, didn't even refer to the victim. She only referred to the perpetrator as a victim. And so that, I think, was what was just so eye-opening to so many of us to hear that. And then you look at the kind of money coming in to change these policies. Something I posted on X that ended up going kind of viral was the fact that the MacArthur Foundation, a $7 billion mega foundation, has funneled over $3 million into Mecklenburg County, which houses Charlotte, in order to promote this racial equity overhaul of our criminal justice system. So, the same kind of policies that you saw coming out of the Racial Equity Task Force were also being promoted by the MacArthur Foundation. So they're getting paid a lot of money to supposedly give these second chances. But let's be clear, it wasn't a second chance. This man had been arrested at least 14 times before, including for armed robbery, assault with a deadly weapon, assaulting his own sister. This is not somebody who should have been on the streets, as even his own mother acknowledged. She tried to get him committed. She tried to get him involuntarily held. They only held him for a short period of time. And these were the deliberate policies, as Allie said, that have been enacted. This pretrial, this cashless bail, this reducing the prison population and decriminalizing homelessness. So these were deliberate actions. This wasn't somebody who fell through the cracks. This was the design. And I think that is what is waking so many people up, is that it wasn't an accident that this happened. They have deliberately enacted these policies to ensure that someone like that is on the streets.
And to be clear, to be clear on what happened, because we used to institutionalize people in this country. We did used to do it to keep the rest of us safe. And then we decided we weren't going to do that anymore. Some 50 years ago, we were going to start opening up the doors to the institutions and letting people out because of civil liberties. We had a couple of bad Supreme Court decisions saying, have to be really super protective of these people's civil liberties. And what did we start to do? They were out on the streets. They became homeless. It became a real problem. So normal states and cities started locking them up in the prisons, because 9 times out of 10, the truly deranged would wind up committing crimes. So they wound up going into the prisons. And the prisons wound up housing some 30% of their populations who were nutcases too. But at least they were behind bars and they would be getting some sort of mental health services in prison. All right, not ideal. I'd rather see them in a locked up mental institution, but I don't really care as long as they're not near me. And then came George Floyd-a-Palooza, and even the 10 years leading up to it, where we started opening up the prisons. Incarceration was bad. It was dangerous. It was racist. And then George Floyd, and we started not only opening up the prisons, but not even prosecuting these people to begin with. That's why, Heather, this is a direct result of policy choices that have been made by politicians.
Well, politicians have now decided that their primary commitment is to the antisocial and the dysfunctional. The hatred against whites that you mentioned, Megan, that results in whiteness studies and the Smithsonian talking about the awful white traits of punctuality and rationality and family. That hatred is even broader. It's the hatred of the bourgeois, of the normal, of the law-abiding. And instead, government, I call this the great inversion, has decided that its obligation is to protect the criminal, the vagrant, against the alleged threat from the bourgeois, and that treats taxpayers as ATMs merely for their feckless social uplift projects. And so we have the rights of the mentally ill vagrants who've decided, and drug abusers who decided they want a street lifestyle because it's the easiest way to keep getting their drug habit fed. We cater to them with these outreach teams that bring them pizza and blankets and tents. And we ask taxpayers to simply put up with it. These are situations in our cities that would have been unthinkable 60, 70 years ago, 100 years ago, when government understood that its primary obligation was not to the antisocial, to protect the antisocial or Black people against dangerous whites and dangerous bodega owners and dangerous entrepreneurs that are just trying to create a functioning business to help Americans have more choice in their how they live their lives. Now, it used to be that's our obligation is to the functional. Now, the only obligation is to people like Brown, to people like Michael Brown. We learned today, amazingly, that the main liar, Dorian Johnson, who perpetrated one of the most incendiary lies of the Black Lives Matter movement, the hands up, don't shoot lie, that even the Obama Justice Department couldn't give credence to and finally said this whole thing is bogus. He was shot fatally very close to where the Michael Brown incident in Ferguson, Missouri happened in 2014. Those are the people that we are venerating. It's a tragic situation. All of our civil rights heroes today are dysfunctional Black criminals. That's how you become a civil rights hero. You get yourself shot by the police because you've been resisting arrest or running or trying to grab the officer's gun, as Michael Brown was. And we're so desperate to villainize whites and to sanctify Blacks because we're so terrified about that inner city dysfunction that those are the people who now we have shrines to. Minneapolis has shrines aplenty to George Floyd because government is unwilling to say, no, we are going to fulfill our obligations, which is to protect rights, property, life, and liberty of people who obey the law.
Yeah, the social compact. We are definitely getting back to the story of Dorian Johnson and Michael Brown, the fact that he's died, and what the media is now saying about him. In particular, CNN and NBC. We are rounding back to that in just a minute, but let me put a pin in it for now. Megan, you mentioned these groups that have been getting in there, changing our prosecution departments and offices across the country. There was an article in Heather's publication, City Journal, today. It hit yesterday. The title of it is Outsourcing Justice, How Donors and Consultants Steer America's Prosecutors. And it kicks off with a story about the WREN, W-R-E-N Collective LLC, a private consulting firm that is, quote, already embedded in several prosecutors' offices across the country and looking to expand. In particular, it's founded by this former public defender activist, Jessica Brand. And they get in there and say, for free, we'll teach you how to do all of the woke BLS stuff. And they're well funded by activists with an agenda. So this is like, we actually have identified political enemies that we have to defeat. Like, we're not in there. Our groups aren't in there. What are we doing?
Right. And look, that's part of the problem is that you have millions and millions of dollars pouring in from Soros's Open Society Foundation, from the MacArthur Foundation, and they're promoting all of these policies. And you have municipalities that are happy to take those millions of dollars to implement these programs. And look, I spent the last couple of days sitting and watching some of this anti-racism training that they put literally our entire court system and policing system through. This rolled out across the state. It became a mandatory thing that you had to go through this anti-racism training as a part of that racial equity task force that was unveiled right after the death of George Floyd. And it is teaching them that if your impulse is to jail someone who is a minority because of a crime they've committed, well, then you may have an implicit bias. And that is what you, as a law enforcement officer or as a member of the court, that's what's pushing you to do that. And really quick, I just want to cite a statistic, which is the fact that if you put white people on a jury, they are much less likely to convict a black defendant than they are another white defendant. It is the opposite for black juries. They are much more likely to let a fellow black defendant go free, and they are much more likely to convict a white defendant. So this idea that white people have this implicit animus towards black people is simply not borne out by the statistics.
When inflation jumps, when you hear the national debt is over $37 trillion, do you ever think maybe now would be a good time to buy some gold? Well, you'd be right. Whether as a hedge against inflation, peace of mind during global instability, or just for sensible diversification, Birch Gold Group believes every American should own physical gold. And so they created something special. Until September 30th, if you're a first-time gold buyer, Birch Gold is offering a rebate of up to $10,000 in free metals on qualifying purchases. To claim eligibility and start the process, request an info kit right now. Just text MK to 989898. Plus, Birch Gold can help you roll an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold, and you're still eligible for a rebate in free metals of up to 10 grand. So make right now your first time to buy gold and take advantage of a rebate up to $10,000 when you buy before September 30th. Text MK to the number 989898 to claim your eligibility and get your free info kit. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.